I'm curious, what is an element of ministering to Latinos that people often overlook, especially people who are trying to maybe start a new Latino ministry? What is something they might overlook and miss when they're doing that?
Yes, first of all, that the Latino culture is not defined by the language. We speak English and Spanish. Maybe we have an accent like me, but
I have an accent too.
and so we do have. That's not the main factor. I would say let's focus in that our goal is not to erase cultural differences, but rather to seek ways to honor the presence of God in these differences. So when I do this teaching and in this workshop, I'm going to speak about the importance of having the central point to have the gospel, the Bible. So if we only want to connect with other cultures and say you and me in different cultures, if we just do that, then we're not going to reach a common ground. I think the common ground has to be the Bible, has to be the gospel. So that's the common, the connection, and that we need to seek for.
Sometimes when we're ministering to multiple cultures, we may call them barriers. They may not be barriers. They're just some differences.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to church leaders who have both English and Spanish speaking people in their churches, or maybe they have English, Spanish, French, German, just multiple cultures? What's some advice you could give to those leaders on how to lead their churches well?
That's a good point. That I think the first of all is the language of love. The language of love in looking into the other as the other person, but in how can I love this person? What can I learn from this person? And how can we connect with the gospel in the center, and knowing that, we're going to have differences, we're going to speak differently, we're going to eat differently, we're going to connect differently, but what is that? It brings us together, and the gospel. Look for, I think it's so good to remember the value of stories. The stories of knowing what is your life growing up. What was life growing up in your home, and rather than saying in your country or in your place? How did you grow up? I grew up this way, and start connecting through the value of stories. Respect limitations and demonstrate tolerance. Limitations, I mean that, for example, a children's leader, a preacher, or someone in our churches here in North America, if you haven't experienced poverty, maybe avoid talking about poverty, because maybe somebody in the congregation has really, lived through that, and so maybe don't just know your limitations.